Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Today, I am joined by someone whose work sits right at the intersection of cult psychology and narcissistic control. And this conversation is one that you are not going to want to miss. Rachel Bernstein is a licensed marriage and family therapist based in Los Angeles who has spent over 30 years specializing in cult intervention and reacclimation. She is one of the leading cult interventionists in her field. You may recognize Rachel from the Starz documentary Seduced or from the Netflix series Unwell and How to Become a Cult Leader. She has appeared as a cult expert on Larry King Live, MSNBC, BBC, NPR, Bloomberg, and countless other major outlets. She is a long-term board member of the International Cultic Studies Association and hosts her own weekly podcast, Indoctrination, where she has interviewed hundreds of cult survivors. In 3 decades of practice, Rachel has likely spoken with more cult survivors than anyone in the history of her field. And today we are exploring the chilling parallels between cult tactics and covert narcissistic relationships, including whether a marriage itself can function as a cult, why victims stay, and what it actually takes to break free and reclaim your sense of self. This is a conversation about patterns, control, and ultimately your power to recognize both. Now let's get into it. So today I welcome Rachel Bernstein to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's so nice to talk to you. I love meeting new people who care about some of the same issues that I care about and love to educate the public about them. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming. I love that we have this team of like all these different people who are reaching out and trying to help the world around us. And we all say the same things, but we all say them in different ways. And so it clicks with the different ways people need to hear it. So that's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. True. Agreed.
So, Rachel, tell my audience a little bit about you, about what you do, because I'm fascinated by it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. So for the last 35 years, I think today, at least this year, I have been working with people who have been involved in cults, people who have been in relationships with narcissists, people who found themselves getting lost in the shuffle, sort of not knowing who they were anymore, or growing in situations, either in cults or in these kinds of dyads where they never really got a chance to develop a self because they had to be sort of whoever the other person wanted them to be or needed for them to be. So I have this sort of unique challenge that I'm faced with as a therapist. I get asked a question that I think not a lot of other therapists get asked, which is, who am I? And I get asked this question of people of all ages, and it's hard when I see someone in their 70s, 80s, even 90s saying, I don't know if I have a self, and how do I develop that? So I'm also a parent, I'm an educator, I am someone who cares about causes. I care about the issue of cults and control on kind of a micro level and a macro level. The micro is the dealing with individuals, the psychological aspects of it. The macro level is coming from, family with a Holocaust background. I care about groupthink and where it can lead, and leadership and the kind of intention to control and to usurp control, and charismatic leaders and with charismatic messages, and where that can go. So it's all kind of on a broader scale, but I also just love working with people one on one, and I think it's really gratifying. And part of the reason that I do this work and focus on narcissism is that it wasn't my original intention, actually. But after people started hearing me talk about cults or helping other people who've been involved in cults, they would sometimes contact me and say, "That sounds like my marriage." And I thought, it does? So I started learning about the fact that this could happen within a family system, within a marital system, within a work system. It's just the nature of the control between one person and another.
Mhm. Yeah, cults, the concept of cults is not limited to religious or spiritual or any of that. It's the concept, the coercion and the manipulativeness and the brainwashing in essence. I mean, it can be found in family units, it can be found in schools and in, of course, churches we've talked about already, but in work environments, even in friend groups.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, I was one time a school counselor at a school for where it was very trendy. It was in a very trendy area of Los Angeles. The school itself was great, but the parents all dressed the same and had the same views on things. And there were times there would be 4 or 5 moms walking in the door, and I wanted to look at them and say, "And what are you all wearing tomorrow?" Because they're all matching, down to the shoes, and I thought, yes, that's also control. People don't realize how much control there is in marketing. In fact, there was a man, Robert Cialdini, who talks about influence and persuasion, and also talks about persuasion, how you get people conditioned to be persuaded, and he came to speak at a cult conference where I was speaking, and he came from a business model, and he said, "You can join a cult or you can go on the Home Shopping Network. You're gonna see the same techniques." That was actually fascinating.
Wow, I bet. Okay. So how do you find we're going to hone this in then a little bit because you've got this, you're talking about on the macro level, big levels here, but of course we're going to hone it down to the micro level. And can a marriage be a cult?
Right. So I think it can be, and if you define cult in particular ways where it really does fit, then it fits. It's interesting. There are a lot of cults that will give you a definition for what a cult is. Don't listen to a cult telling you what a cult is, because they will always tell you it's other things, not the
They'll
things
tell
that
you
we
the way
do,
they
right?
want you to think. Yeah.
Mhm. Right, or if they live communally, they'll say, "Oh, a cult does not live communally." They just switch it up and do the opposite.
Yeah.
Mm, but I think when you're dealing with a cult, you're dealing with a situation where you don't get to have a self anymore. You aren't you. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter how you feel. And you don't get to have anyone else in your life. You don't get to have any way else to think about things or even think about yourself. There's gaslighting. It becomes your entire life. Like, people can't be involved in a cult and then involved in other causes or other religious groups. It is it, similar
Right.
to a controlling relationship. And, you're with people who are gonna be dividing and conquering. They're gonna be separating you from your world. They're gonna be separating you from your original morality, just what you thought was okay and what wasn't. They're gonna be, interfering with your memories just like how cults do. They love to rewrite your history, and so then those people out there where you're abusers and we're protecting you from them. There's so many similarities. So, yes, to answer
Yeah.
your question finally, yes, it can happen within a relationship of any sort, whether it's marital or a partner or even a business relationship.
Okay. So somebody listening today, and let's say they're, at home driving their car, whatever they're doing, and they're going, okay, well, I never thought of it like a cult. That didn't occur to me. They're listening because of their marriage, let's say. So, could you give an example of a cult environment that's not a marriage that kind of talks about that kind of, the control, the indoctrination, the gaslighting? so that they can maybe connect the dots by seeing it from an outside perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people will think about religious environments, but let's imagine um, multi-level marketing. I work with people sometimes who got involved with counselors, with therapists, with psychiatrists, with healers who wound up being their cult leaders.
Wow.
Um, and so, you know what? Let's even jump to that because I think people do hear a lot about the multi level marketing issue and the control. But I do actually want to highlight how this can happen within what are supposed to be therapeutic environments.
Okay.
That you have somebody who wants to, that their intention is to take you over, not to free you, not to help you, not to partner with you on your journey, but to reform your thinking in a way that works for
Right.
them, not for you. A person who also wants to isolate you, who needs to be needed, who needs to be the only one who you can trust, who you listen to, who will punish you for a dissenting view, who will tell you there's something wrong with you or will diagnose you with something if you disagree with them. Um, or once like I've seen this with some people who call themselves healers or counselors, they'll make you dependent on them. And then if you are starting to be kind of aware that something is wrong here and you're thinking about leaving, they'll then pull away first while still knowing they've made you dependent. And so they panic you into
Understand.
reconforming and being okay with continuing and lowering your defenses again to them. But they just love to kind of constantly rewrite your sense of reality. And there are a lot of people who have come to me and are very afraid of seeking therapy. They're afraid of coming to any of my support groups because they've been so controlled within group systems or by their group therapy facilitator. And so it is a difficult situation, just like with a one on one cult, because it's intensely personal. It is that
Mm.
the manipulator has studied you and the manipulator is using all of your fears and your longings, your wounds, your insecurities, and tailors the control specifically to you in a very cruel way. And then they also have this guise of knowing better because they're in a position of authority.
Yeah.
I'm I'm very cautious in my office. I'm in my office now that my chair that I often sit in, and clients can sit in chairs if they want, or they can sit on couch. I make sure that everything is at the same height. So nobody is, I
Mhm.
even measure it, right? So we are eye to eye. We are here together. I'm
Right.
not in charge. You don't have to look up to me, and I'm not looking down on you.
Right. No, I think that's awesome. I can only imagine if you're dealing with this in regards to a therapist, somebody you've gone to, you've trusted, you've opened your heart up to, the level of wound that that creates for the
Mhm.
person experiencing this.
Yeah, and it really robs people of feeling like there are safe resources out there for them. They'll be
Mhm.
very afraid then, right? I mean, I don't know if I would if I were, abused. It's similar to how people feel after they've been abused by someone who was within a religious
Yeah.
context, right?
Mhm.
And then they say, "Okay, I'm done with religion," as opposed to that
Right.
was unsafe,
Right. They just
'cause
turn their back on.
If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right. The same goes for cleaning. Simple Green All-Purpose Cleaner delivers powerful, concentrated performance across multiple surfaces, from tools and equipment to floors, workspaces, and more. It's strong enough for serious cleaning, yet formulated to work without harsh chemicals that demand heavy protective gear. Get the job done right. Safer, stronger, smarter. That's the power of Simple Green. Learn more at simplegreen.com.
All of it then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It just feels like a safer decision, which is a shame for a lot of people.
Yeah. So a therapist in a situation like what you've described, superiority, entitlement, they're manipulating and controlling. Is somebody who is a cult leader, is it just automatic that they are narcissistic? Like, do those just go hand in hand?
That's such a good question. Yeah, sometimes people will say, "What kind of person starts a cult?" And and people have said to me, and it's a little disconcerting when they say this, but they'll say, "You know so much about how to run a cult. You know, you could make more of a living if you just like you know,
Ooh,
decided to utilize all these skills and things that you know, and like, yeah, but there's this fundamental difference, which is I would have to shelve my conscience. I'd have to
mhm,
just put it elsewhere. The thing that is this internal stopgap measure that is about doing the right thing versus the wrong thing, and that's what you follow by is the thing that's always going to stop you, no matter how well you might know uh, how to run something or, what a cult really should be and how to run it. Yes, but I love to talk about it, to teach people to prevent it from happening. I have no desire to be that person in
mhm.
people's lives. Um, in fact, as an aside, someone came to me once and said, "I'm afraid of myself." And I said, "I don't know what you mean." And he said, "I have been charismatic since I was little. I was raised with a narcissistic parent. I know how to work a crowd, and I do it even before I know that I'm doing it. And people listen to me, and it bothers me, and it scares me. And I often notice people are following me, and I turn to them." Reminds me of a Monty Python movie, I think The Life of Brian, right?
Right,
Where he just turns to people and he goes, "Stop, follow. I could be
right.
wrong. I probably am wrong. Stop listening." But that there's something about but his conscience was
Mhm,
talking to him saying, "You need to be careful to not be in a leadership position because people will listen to everything you say." So
mhm.
he actually does IT. He doesn't deal with people all that much, and that makes him feel safer. Um, but I do think that, when you're looking at what kind of person gets involved in a cult or starts one or uh, carries the torch for a
Becomes the
cult
leader
leader
of
who
one.
is
Mhm,
right. Very often, more often than not, they are narcissists, they're malignant narcissists, they really don't care about who they harm,
mhm.
and they don't look back, and they don't introspect and wonder and feel guilt and carry that burden. They're like a tornado that moves through people's lives. They leave wreckage, the flying cows and the barns, and
Right,
they just keep going because
yeah,
they exist in the present and the future, not in the
yeah.
past.
The
And
tornado doesn't get hurt, the tornado stays intact, everything else gets
absolutely.
demolished. Right.
Right, right. The tornado is perfectly fine, and they're looking for who else they can cause as their wreckage because they love the feeling of it. So most are malignant narcissists. Then there are two other types I've come across, um, and a couple I've met, which has always been interesting. Um, interesting is one word. Um, One where they started out as sort of street preachers, similar to Jim Jones of Jonestown, just starting
Mhm,
out caring about people who were living in San Francisco area and the downtrodden. But they had this propensity to become kind of drunk with their own power. So if they hadn't gone in that direction and been so good and so charismatic, they might not have ever known that they had this predisposition, but that they become more of a monster over time because they see that they have this power and they love it. And
so it
so I've
didn't
seen.
necessarily start that way.
Right, right, but
Okay.
that they have something inside of them where it speaks to them and they love it and they don't wanna stop it once they notice it. Um, and then the other person who really is not well, who really has psychosis, like the head of, Heaven's Gate in, San Diego, where he believed that the mothership was coming. There people who knew him from growing up and knew both of them, they're male and female, but I know more about him. They knew that he had this mm, kind of either for some people, it might be seen as an ability, other people, a psychiatric illness, where he saw things that weren't there. So then I don't think he was trying to cause harm. I think it was more of a situation of what we call folie à deux, which is a shared psychosis. So other people who were looking for something magical, who also might have had a vulnerability to magical thinking, joined in the psychosis with him. Um,
Interesting.
these are two other types that you see much less. So I'd go back to like a 95% th- that it really is tipped way over onto the side of malignant narcissists being at the helm of most cultic systems.
Okay. So, with all of that being said, I'm listening to your description and I'm putting that malignant narcissist in a more overtly narcissistic behavior, more visibly seen. And what you're describing with the other one, I think what we're seeing is maybe they don't necessarily know that they're doing harm, or the intent might not be there to do harm. And I would say that speaks to me because in dealing with so many people who have, suffered at the hands of a covert narcissist, one of the things that I've kind of drawn from a lot of the people I've interacted with is a more overtly narcissistic person needs to be admired by the world. Their targets
Mhm.
are 30 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. They're big targets, target numbers. But a more covertly narcissistic person, their target is one. They
Mhm.
really hone in
Mhm.
on one person. And
Mhm.
and that brings us to that cult of two concept that I know we're gonna
Yes.
talk about here.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering, does that kind of feed into what the description is of what you're talking about? Because so many people have said to me, "I don't think that he or she," it goes both ways, "I don't think that they meant to hurt me. It feels like they didn't mean to, but boy, look at the damage that was done." And it's
Mhm.
hard to speak to that because it's so insidious.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So I have a number of cases right now I'm dealing with, and I've dealt with in the past, of people who said, "This is my partner," or "This is my husband, my wife," and they have total control over me. And for whatever reason, I feel very protective towards them, no matter how badly they treat me. And I would feel like I'm abandoning them by leaving. Like with a cultic system, people will feel that they're abandoning the cause or that they're leaving
Mhm.
God, not that they're abandoning the person. They don't feel as protective towards that person. You find that more in relationship, the one-on-one with the covert narcissist. There's the, oh, but the poor guy or the poor woman, she goes through such a hard time. Everyone is standing in her way of being able to have success. People just don't
Mhm.
understand her. They don't know that she's been through a hard childhood. People just don't understand that her intentions are good. Like you have these people who just innately, out of goodness or conditioning, feel like it's their job also to be the PR firm for these people and talk
Right.
about right how great they really are and how you just don't understand.
We pump
And
them up
this
a
is
whole lot more than
right.
maybe they've
Yeah.
earned. Yeah.
Yeah, then absolutely, then they've earned, because often they haven't earned anything. They
Mhm.
just earned sympathy, but they actually
Mm.
haven't really done anything to earn, I think, real validation or respect. They really
Mhm.
don't do
Or
anything to earn
admiration
respect.
or
Right.
um,
Exactly, and they often don't have skills. I think a lot of these people, I say that they wouldn't survive in the wild, like, they often don't have, things that would help them make a living and be upstanding citizens in the world. I think their talent, if we can call it that, is that they know how to knock people down to be able to then stand on their backs to raise themselves up.
mhm.
But without being able to do that, they would not be able to actually be a presence in the world or in anyone's life without usurping that power or utilizing that power that they really manipulated out of somebody else.
Do you find that this is fascinating to me? And do you find that when a cult falls apart, when they've got this, whatever, cult of two or cult of 100, they've got this in place and inevitably it crashes.
Mhm.
And when things come crashing apart for them, do you find that they are now in isolation? Like they don't have anyone to turn to because of kind of what you were just saying. They've manipulated, they've coerced, they've put themselves up on this pedestal, and when the pedestal comes down, they're now experiencing the isolation that they actually forced on their targets.
Mhm. Right. So a lot of people who are the partners of or the victims of these kinds of covert narcissists will be so afraid of leaving them to fend for themselves. They're so sure that their life will just fall apart. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes these people do implode. What I've noticed more often, though, is that they then go on the hunt. They
Mm.
then quickly go to find the next person who is gonna believe their sob story, basically, who is going to believe their victim story, and they will look for people who are gonna care, who are gonna
Mhm.
wanna do something for them, who are gonna be willing to sacrifice for them, to tend to them. There's a woman I was working with recently who said that when she gained some distance from the relationship she was in, she realized that she had shelved her entire life, her entire self, everything, and that when she looked at her role in the relationship, she saw herself running around. It's gonna sound strange, but running around with a huge thing of masking tape. And I said, "Why masking tape?" And she said, "It was my job to hold this person together."
Wow.
And they would fall apart and they would be angry, and this person didn't notice their wonderfulness, and they were, passed over for, I don't know, some, promotion at work, and then they were angry and sad, and then she would give up having dinner, tending to the fact that she had the flu or whatever else, and she'd pick up the masking tape and just hold this person together, and it also didn't matter. Meaning she could do that, but each day she had to keep proving that she was devoted, that she was willing to do this, that she cares about this person. Like, you don't accrue points. I picture all actually a lot of narcissists I picture as having something inside of them more like a sieve, like a colander, than something solid, so that moments that could really make them feel good about themselves, like the fact that they have a partner who's willing to make all these sacrifices for them, it doesn't get held in a solid place
Mm.
inside. And so you as the partner will be with someone where you thought you proved how wonderful, they are to you, but it fell through. It, like,
Mhm.
dissipated. And so starting back Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday
You
morning, you
gotta
have
do
to
it
keep
all over again.
all over again,
Mhm.
which is exhausting, totally
Mhm.
exhausting for the other person. I can sometimes tell when people come in the office that there's a relationship between someone who's narcissistic and controlling and someone who's not, because one of them looks well rested and looks put together, might even have a little bit of a tan because they sat outside for a little while, even if that's not healthy, but they did. And they look like they got it together. And the other one looks like they just got out of bed. They haven't eaten, they haven't brushed their hair because their job is to tend to the other one and their insatiable and repetitive needs for accolades and affirmation.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you're describing is exactly the illustration of what I've seen with so many people that I work with. And with that being said, the one who is the victim of it, the target of it,
Mhm.
how does somebody who's been a target of a covert narcissistic marriage or person in a marriage, how does that compare to somebody who's actually been in a cult? Like, we don't call the one a cult, although we are saying they're the cult. How does that compare to somebody who's been in, say, a religious cult or something? Are there similarities?
Yeah, there are similarities. There are a couple of differences, but I can highlight those too. But the similarities are that you have entered into someone else's world, and that is your total focus, keeping them happy with you, proving yourself. You've often shelved everything. You may have dropped out of school. You may have not attended family functions because that would have threatened your partner. So you haven't gone to weddings, you haven't gone to funerals, you haven't visited people in the hospital. And if they don't understand what you're dealing with and what you're in, they've then taken it out on you. So you don't feel like you have kind of a safe place to go back to, even if you were to leave, because you feel like you've burned your bridges. You
Mm.
also, similar to being in a cult, you have put everything into this impossible situation that is replete with intermittent gratification, which is highly addictive. So you're not going to get the lovely, affirming, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for all of your selfless work." You're not going to hear that from a cult leader. You're not going to hear that from a covert narcissist or sometimes any narcissist. You might hear it from a narcissist who in front of other people,
Mhm.
but
Public display.
in public display,
Yeah.
right? But not privately. So you are then caught up in something you don't realize you're caught up in, which is this intermittent gratification, which is just as addictive as gambling. Like you put your money into the slot machine or however they do it now, and you might get a payout, but probably not. But you're going to keep trying until you do, because when you do, it feels so good and you worked so
Mhm.
hard and you waited so long for it.
Mhm.
Um, and you think that then that person is showing you gratitude and that person is showing you love, but it's really not that. They just happen to be in a mood probably when they wanted to express that, but it doesn't really mean anything, and it won't mean
Mhm.
anything an hour from now. Um,
Well, and
it's
sometimes it gets
exhausting.
expressed because they want something from you at the time.
Right,
Going back
right,
to the
and it's
manipulative nature.
right, exactly, like, notice that, and the other thing is that people in these situations are so close to them that they're not able to take a step away and notice patterns, and you always wanna notice patterns, and within a cultic system, you're not gonna notice patterns because 'cause you're always needing to prove yourself. You're underslept, you're often underfed, you, haven't been able to go to see a doctor to help you with whatever it is that is causing you pain or something. Um, so you're in survival mode. When you're in survival mode in these relationships, in these kinds of cults, you can't take a step away enough to notice the patterns. And one of the patterns that you'll notice in terms of deciding and knowing that you're being manipulated, and if the person only says nice things when they want something,
Mhm.
is is it only when you say, "Okay, that's it, I'm done," that they tell you that they love you? Is it only when you get the plane ticket to go home, that they say they're sorry?
Mhm.
Um, because it should be when they harmed you, and it should be that, because you did so much for them that they're expressing their feelings, but not when suddenly they feel threatened that you're taking their supply away. And notice also what happens when you suddenly rescind your threat and you stay. Do they still love you, and are they still sorry? And usually not. And
Mhm.
so it's hard though when you're so in it because you can't see it. It's like, I don't know if you've ever done photography, but if you need to get a good landscape picture and see the whole picture, you have to take a step
Step
back.
back. Mhm.
But you can't do it when you're just trying to survive the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. I've talked about the analogy of standing too close to a stained glass window.
Yes,
If I got my
totally.
nose up against the stained glass window, there's no way in the world I can tell you what the picture is. All I see is the color green. you know?
Right, exactly
Um,
right, and then you'll only see things through that color too, right? Like, that's the color that you see things through.
mm,
And cult leaders will do that, manipulators and one-on-one kinds of cults will do that. They'll show you how you're supposed to see things. They'll give you the lens through which you see your family, through which you see the
mhm,
world, through which you see yourself. It's really
mhm.
just it's like a funhouse mirror, right? It's very disorienting.
Extremely disorienting. And for people who are in that and they're resonating with what you're saying and going, "Oh my word, yes, okay, that clicks, that hits me in the heart." What do you tell somebody who's standing too close to the stained glass window? What do they do about this?
So they need to be able to deal with. I'm thinking of all the things that people are dealing with in these kinds of situations. Also, that the world will often find the controller more convincing and believable,
Mhm.
which is also very isolating because people who are charismatic, and they also come across as sometimes much more rational because they're not as exhausted and they're not as confused and they're not as depleted. They can be articulate and charming and a lot of other things. So you feel like you don't have a leg to stand on, even if you were to talk about this. But what can you do? I think what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to know that there is something inside of you that is speaking to you. There is a voice inside that you really have as your job to listen to. And part of the reason that controllers will want you to not hear your inner voice is because they know.
When you work with your hands, you need tools you can count on. The same goes for cleaning. Simple Green All-Purpose Cleaner delivers professional strength cleaning to tackle grease, grime, and job site messes, so you can focus on getting the work done right. For contractors and painters, to plumbers, installers, and maintenance crews, Simple Green helps pros like us clean smarter without harsh chemicals. You handle the job, we'll clean up the mess. Visit simplegreen.com/professional.
I drive my bus in a busy city. That's why road safety is so important to me. I know that I must slow down and be extra careful when I make a wide turn. Buses need more room than cars. Everyone can help keep our roads safe. Next time you're driving, remember to give buses plenty of time and space to finish turning before driving ahead. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Learn how at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
How powerful and how accurate it is. And so, a controller also, so many people come to me and they say, but he knew me or she knew me better than I knew myself, because that's what they say. As soon as they'll ask you a question, they actually don't even care what your answer is. They're just waiting for you to be done so they can say the following. No, that's not. That's not how you feel. That's not
Right.
what you're really thinking. I know how you feel. I know what you're thinking. No, they don't. Not at all.
Mm-mm.
Um, so, if you can imagine for a moment that the reason that they wanted to take that away from you, that sense that you could really hear yourself and that you could be a good guide for yourself, was because of how threatening it ultimately was to them, because they knew how accurate and powerful it was, then you want to be able to start to trust it again. And
Mhm.
you want to be able to see that it could be actually talking to you. And before you talk yourself out of listening, because in religious cults, they'll say that's the devil. Um, and in multi-level marketing, that's your failure talk, and you're just letting your failure talk, whatever, all these terms
Mhm.
for it, that because they don't want you to hear yourself.
'Cause they don't want you to listen to your own instincts, yes, and your own
Right?
voice.
So, it'll be diagnosed in every different direction as something evil, and you wanna notice that's another pattern. Why do they keep trying to take that away from me? It must be because they don't want me to have it. Why does a controller not want me to have access to something? It's because it threatens their control. So,
Mhm.
listen to you, but also know that you are not alone in the world. They may have worked on trying to affect how you're seen by your family and friends and making it seem like you're the abuser often. That happens,
Mhm.
right? And you're the crazy one and you're the
And they're really good at laying down that narrative.
oh my goodness, and they
Yes.
love to get there first, right? Like, "Oh, I put up with your sister because, well, she's a pathological liar, but, I still am willing to love her even though." Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, just know that even if they've made you feel like they are your whole world, that's not the case.
Mhm.
If you feel like you've lost your family and friends maybe temporarily because they believed the story, there are still people to talk to. There is your podcast. There are other voices out there that are validating. There are support groups. There's my support group. There are people to talk to who can say, "We have been there. You are not alone." And as soon as you can connect with others who get it, even if it is just listening to something or watching a YouTube video, if it's safe to do that, because sometimes they'll take away your ability
Sometimes
to
it's not. Mhm.
right? If it is safe, know that there's evidence out there that you are not alone, and that is very empowering and can really help you feel brave enough to take the first step to leave.
Absolutely, and that is great advice. I run support groups as well. We've got Facebook communities now that are the different
Nice.
support groups, one that I run, but there's lots of others too. I strongly encourage everybody to find the right spot for them to get the support that they need, whether that
Mhm.
be, through the work I'm doing, through the work you're doing, or anybody else's work that you're doing. Find the spot that resonates with their heart and their soul.
Mhm. Absolutely right. And I think also have some privacy. Because,
Mhm.
people sometimes will say to me, "Oh, no, I was able to keep a journal and a diary, and I could write down my thoughts." And 9 times out of 10, the controller had access to that and would
Mhm.
sometimes give them a hard time for what they wrote in their private diary.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it means going and picking up a burner phone and just having a phone that's not with a call and a number that's not able to be traced back.
Right.
Start, saving up a little bit of money if you can, doing what you can to have a little bit of independence and your own world,
Right.
um, and that you don't have to explain yourself. If you're thinking about leaving, if you're questioning what's going on, don't feel like you need to come to them to talk about what you're planning. In fact, it's probably best not to, because they'll talk you out of it.
Mhm.
And then they will take the wind out of your sails. And you want to keep the wind in them because you're going to need it. You're going to need that power
Absolutely.
behind you. Hmm.
Absolutely, and you're gonna need the support around you, the
Hmm.
different people. Just hearing somebody else's story that resonates with you is, like, magical in how empowering it is.
Right.
And the controller in your world, they're gonna they have so many of us believing that we can't do anything without their permission, without their knowledge.
Yes.
I can't open a Gmail account. How can I open I have to tell them I'm gonna open, like, I need to go ask. How many times did I say within my own world, and I hear it from so many people, is I felt like I always had to go ask permission to do, and I was like,
Yes.
"You're a grown adult. You don't need their permission," but we're
Right.
brainwashed to believe that we do.
Oh, absolutely. I think people also really worry about 2 other things, and that's what kind of keeps them from leaving, and I really wanna I want to relieve people of these, ideas. One is that somehow if something bad happens to the person who's been controlling you by virtue of you leaving, it's not your fault. That's
Mhm.
still a decision they're making, maybe to have their life go down in flames. They might even do it to try to make you feel bad, but that's still their choice. And
Mhm.
so you are not responsible for them. They are not your infant.
Mhm.
Um, that is the only person in the world who you are completely responsible for. And I think the other part is that you are actually more capable than they are. They have often made you feel like you can't do things without them, but you actually were able to do a lot of things before you got involved with them, and you will be able to do that again. You are
Mhm.
actually so much more capable of being a participant in society in a healthy way more than them, because you don't need to siphon off people's confidence and power in order for you to feel like you are worth anything in this world or that you're accomplishing anything. You can do it independent of needing to control or needing to dominate, needing to break somebody down.
Mm.
And that to me is way more symbolic of someone who really can function and who knows how to be a good participant in society.
That's a beautiful message. Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for being here and sharing your story and your life and your work with this audience. And if somebody wants to reach out to you, if they want to find you, learn more about what you do, why don't you share a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So I run a support groups, some particular for particular people who've been involved in particular cultic groups, but I also have one for general former cult members and people who have been in these kinds of relationships. And also, I do counseling and I do speaking, and I have my weekly podcast called Indoctrination, where I interview people who have been in situations like these and others. My website is rachelbernsteintherapy.com. And again, the podcast is Indoctrination, or The Indoctrination Show. And so you can find me on YouTube under my name, Rachel Bernstein, LMFT. If you want to email me, you're welcome to do that at bernsteinlmft@gmail.com. And I'm happy to be a resource. And it's been really, really great to get to know you and to find out also about your support groups, and I would love to connect with you over that, so I get that resource for my clients and anyone who's reaching out
Absolutely.
to me as well. I love sort of cross-pollinating, so to speak, 'cause I think it's great when we're all sort of team players in this field. There
Absolutely.
there are too few of us, I think, and too great of a need, so it's important, I think, for us to really connect, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm thrilled anytime I can find kindred spirits who are there genuinely to help others and to help people. My passion from the very beginning of all of this was to set up a community, kind of the concept of neighbor helping neighbor. Neighbor's arm around neighbor's
Mm,
arm, hey, can I borrow an egg? I need to, hey, can I chew your ear off because my marriage is falling apart? It's that kind of thing where neighbors are helping neighbors. And that's been the
mm.
community that I have tried to build from day one.
Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice. Yeah, when I talk to people, they will say they heard something that you put out. Even, when you're talking about community, there's someone I know who recently came to see me because she just happened to open up to a new hairdresser and she was just talking and the hairdresser
It's
just took
that.
her aside.
Yes,
Right, right.
it's that.
Those moments.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's those
Yeah.
moments, they're so valuable, and those moments
Mhm.
of a stranger in a grocery store or, those times when I just happen to say something and somebody I don't even know says, "Hey, are you okay? Do you
Right.
do you need a hug? Do you need a shoulder to lean on? Do you need a cup of coffee?" Like, those are moments that are just so precious, and it's humanity
Mhm.
showing the genuine care.
And it's so nice, and we need
Mm,
that, all the
yeah,
more so now just to help us feel connected, like, the world is not so huge and isolating. In fact, there are places of connection and people who really do actually care. It's so nice to be reminded of that.
absolutely. Rachel, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If today's conversation resonated with you, I want you to sit with something that Rachel said, that the reason a controller works so hard to silence your inner voice is because they know how powerful and accurate it really is. That voice is still there, and it's absolutely worth listening to. You can find Rachel at rachelbernsteintherapy.com. You can connect with her on YouTube or reach out to her by email. Make sure to check out her podcast, Indoctrination, wherever you listen, and there will be links in the show notes here. If you've been listening, learning, and starting to see these patterns, but still feel stuck in the same cycles, you're definitely not alone. And it's not because you're missing information. It's because this isn't something that you're meant to untangle alone. There's a point where understanding is not enough, and you need real support to actually move through it. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin to move forward. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. Check out my coaching services at my website, again, covertnarcissism.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to thumbs up, to follow, to like this podcast so that you can get more empowering episodes like this one and to help us continue spreading the word so that our community can continue to grow. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of this material and information provided.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.